Hey, all, welcome to our discussion about AI. We're going to talk about the practical applications of generative AI for business. In other words, not to be too hyperbolic about everything. We're going to show real world applications and implications. And we have a couple people here who deal with it. Let's just kind of go around the room. I am Shlomo. I do strategy at Visible Magic. My AI work actually started when AI was called chatbots. And I did the first scripting conference for those who script for chatbots 6 years ago called Talkabot. And our company got sold to Microsoft. And now the head of that company runs chats over at Microsoft. So that's my foray into the start of AI. And let's just go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. Victor?
Hi, I'm Victor Spark, CTO of Visible Magic. So I was not the AI, but natural language processing fields since somewhere 2010 or something. So it was like a big area of interest for me, and evolution is really fascinating. So we are in 2023, 13 years later, and cool things all around.
Nice. And we'll talk about NLP, right? Like that's kind of where I came in as well. And we'll get deep into that. John, tell us about.
Hey guys. Yeah, so I've been a journalist, entrepreneur for a number of years. I'm getting into AI from a marketing slash content slash journalism perspective. I think there's a lot to be said for having a robot that can basically do a lot of the grunt work required of writers right now and creatives in general. Um, I understand that in programming, it's basically going to replace the low-level programmer instantly. In journalism, it's going to be a little harder, and I think it's important for us to understand the limitations and how far this thing can go.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll get into that. I think. Um, let's talk about. Let's start there, where you see real-world applications in certain things that it's going to stop jobs, and ones that are just going to enhance their jobs. Right. That's really what it comes down to in this field to me. Right. It's going to alleviate this sort of situation, but more importantly, in our world, it's going to augment our situation. It's going to enhance it and enable certain things. Let's talk about that in terms of marketing and journalism for you.
Sure. Look, I mean, I think from a holistic standpoint, this is just another tool. I was talking on a podcast recently about the idea that AI is going to change things, going to make things worse, etc. I don't think that's true. I think it's the equivalent of saying like, oh, well, use a typewriter, and I don't want you using a Microsoft Word because it's too fast. You can cut and paste, you can do all sorts of things. And I think there's many analogs to this in many types of content creation. The movement from film, cutting tape, cutting film, to, I guess you could say, non-linear editors was a huge jump for a lot of people, and a lot of people couldn't make that jump. And I think the most important thing that we need to consider is that this is just another tool that's going to make things a lot better for a lot of people. Will it put the old timers out of business? Potentially. If the old timers can figure out how to use the tool properly, then they'll be like whatchamacallit, Rick Rubin, who went from splicing the Beastie Boys tapes together to working with Pro Tools. And it's an evolution of the industry.
I totally agree. As I say about the wheel, right? Like the wheel was first on this hand pull cart, and then it got put on a locomotive. But the wheel is still the wheel. It's just we were able to enable it to go quicker and faster, and that scared people.
I mean, for my money, I'm actually curious to what Victor thinks in terms of generative. Like something like Copilot, something like I asked it today to write me 3 shell scripts that use awk to delete some lines in a massive file. It was a 3 gig file. I reduced it down to, I don't know, a couple million lines. And I asked the thing to do it for me. It did it for me. It sent it back. I'm doing the same thing with a bunch of code that I need to write for an Arduino system. Does that knock you out of the running because it's such a very specific tool that is historically was controlled by a group of people who really had a lot of knowledge, and now it doesn't have to be? Interesting.
Well, this is a very good example of what we can use the generative AI for now, okay? Because what essentially it brings to users, it allows you to be smart as like baseline users of some expertise, okay? So if you need to write a script, it can write for you, okay? And it can help to solve some burden task, like, I don't know, write me some SQL to SQL code to retrieve some database or something like this. Write me some shell scripts. I use it on a daily basis regularly, like literally I use it day to day to simplify some things, okay? And it's a huge time saving. John, I understand like how simple it to write some things for Arduino, like to write this one-liner to shut out some content from the file and so on. Because what I done, for example, like 5, 10, or 15 minutes before, I can do in 1 or 2 minutes. This is incredible time saving. You know, this is like huge. But I wouldn't say that it will knock me out immediately out of business, yeah, because you need to comprehend much larger things and much larger knowledge base in order to make something really working, you know, because right now we're dealing with very simple models which can operate on quite limited amount of memory, something like 100,000 of kilobytes. This is maximum, okay? While we as humans operate on our past experience, on our communication, on a lot of things, which likes terabytes of real data, you know, in every day. So we work in multimodal world, and we need to transform this thing, which we do unconsciously on everyday basis. But this tool really helps a lot to save the time, essentially.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's the exact same thing in terms of writing. This thing's never going to write a novel. It can write maybe a scene regarding like some kind of thing that's heavily needs to be heavily researched. Like if my character was in like 1820s New York and I needed to write a scene in a drugstore. What does it look like? What's there? Who's in there, etc. It can take information. It can synthesize that information to make me 500 words, but it's never going to write 100,000 words. Not yet, at least.
True. Victor, because you say you'd use it most days, can you tell me what that workflow would be like and what tools you're using? Like, are you using any of these ones you're showing, like Copilot? Like, what is your workflow on how you're augmenting your code?
Well, usually either GitHub Copilot or just interacting with ChatGPT. I mean, chat interface. This is it right now. Not so much. Yeah,
because there are companies that are scripting boutique environments for us to like pay to use, right? That is a business case going on, right? Like, because we could all generate our own rules for these, and there's a lot of internal ones being made for businesses, right? Where they're making internal rules and creating their own knowledge base within their AI. Are you using anything like that, or do you just kind of strictly with these more open ones that are already generating their own rules?
Not much at this point of time. It's still early stages, you know. But in terms of generative AI, okay, we're speaking of right now. So it's likely early stage of adoption for me personally. But if we gonna take a broader look, so generative AI is something like 5% of total AI market right now, because the machine learning and AI has been for decades, like in heavy use, okay? And everything is still there. What we have right now is the knowledge, like transfer, knowledge sharing, how they call it. So it can be done on demand, so, and in a very simple form, which doesn't need to be like geeky or something like this. You ask the machine, you get something really understandable, which you can work with. This is like the major improvement for mass adoption, because before it was like a nerdy thing, which need quite specific interaction with the machinery, tools, and libraries.
Totally. John, how about you? Are you scripting rule sets into any of these AIs that kind of levels you up
No,
better than others?
not really. There really hasn't been any, and there really hasn't been any need for me to use any of the modifiers for these things. Off the shelf, they work pretty well. I think that's going to be the experience for a lot of us. We're going to have this low level latent AI that's just floating around. That's like, hey, robo me, what do you think about this and this? And it'll just give us a quick answer, and that'll be everywhere. It's on our phones, it's on our devices, it's in our homes, all that other good stuff.
Absolutely. But just like how we are, and I'm not sure if I'm playing devil's advocate or not, because I could be totally wrong on feeling this. But at the moment, I feel like a lot of these, let's say ChatGPT or whatever that I have on my phone, is about as good or bad of a search as the first 3 pages of Google. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
No,
research level searching. It's not research level answers to me, but I could be wrong.
If I'm looking to synthesize a piece of information quickly, this is I'm going to ChatGPT instantly. If I need to, and this comes up with my Arduino stuff, for example, and this is all just hobbyist stuff. But I'll get into a position where I'm like, I don't know how to make this thing connect to this other thing, and ChatGPT doesn't give you any context. It basically just says, here's the code. You got to do a few things to make it work. Um, so then I end up in a forum somewhere, or I end up kind of doing my research. I kind of synthesizing with my own brain. Um, to a degree, I'd much rather be synthesizing with the AI's brain. I don't want to read 15 pages of forum notes to figure out that I'm doing something wrong. But that's just my situation. That's just my time constraints, etc. Rather than anything personal that I have against the technology.
And that's the transformation of business, right? Of this, of what we're talking about is that access contextualized of a wide breadth of knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm starting my own business, I'm an entrepreneur. And now that I have these tools in the world, right? The limit is my own creativity of asking what I need, right?
Well, it's not even creativity as much as the understanding of what to expect. If you know what to expect out of these tools, then you're not going to drive yourself crazy asking stupid things. If you know that this thing is really good at making a quick Python script to do X, Y, and Z, then just use it for that. If you're sitting here trying to make an entire system, I don't know, iPhone app with these tools, you're going to be really frustrated. And I think a lot of these tools, and this is especially good for you, Victor, that a lot of these tools are like offering AI powered UI generation, this other stuff. No, it doesn't work. You can say, draw me a picture of a news site, or draw me a picture of an iPhone app that does XYZ, but getting that into an actual form that's usable, and actually using that thing without editing it, without controlling it, you still need that education to understand how these things all fit together. It's exactly the same way when if you're not a writer and you ask the thing to write you an essay about, I don't know, banking in the third world or something like that, and you don't understand any context, you don't understand any history, you don't understand banking even, it's just going to be garbage. And if you try to publish that on your Forbes site or LinkedIn or whatever, you're going to be called out on it. Maybe you won't, because people won't even notice. But It's dangerous to really depend on these things if you don't know what you're depending on.
Exactly. And there is very interesting observation that what AI can actually take off the market is the junior positions, like junior in something, junior fields, because essentially it can operate like a 20 or 30% threshold degree quite good. And we see just a year of quite good practical applications in real world, so this is like a year of evolution, and it's already good at this point. What I think is we're limited by computing power and larger models, but essentially we're going to be there. And the dangerous point of evolution going to be a moment in time when these things will start to code, not to start code, but interact with computer hardware without any scripts or something like this. When they're going to be generating the software, when they like different models, different AIs, etc., they will communicate directly without any natural language, and we will just have no chance to understand what is the essence, like what the language they speak each other. This is going to be the transition point where, for example, my job will be useless. So till that point, we can benefit from the scripts, from saving the times on some burden tasks. It's just a blessing for developers, I think.
Interesting, John. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I know you could be the contrarian, negative side. No, the realitarian side of situations sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I don't think any of our jobs are going to be damaged by this stuff. I think the idea of the junior programmer or whatever being replaced by AI is also really problematic. The idea that we're losing that experience, that potential for experience and growth is kind of dangerous, and I don't think we want that. I equate this a lot to the idea of the Teamsters and the longshoremen. So in the last century, we've moved from unloading boats by hand that would come into the harbor. Literally, some dude would just like climb out of the boat, pull out a stack of leather or a stack of bananas or something, and take it out and carry it by hand out into the port and drop it off. And you had this constant work, and you had hundreds of people, thousands of people doing this work. And to get that stuff down the coast, you would put it into a truck, and it would go in it wasn't a box truck; it was just like a little Ford whatever. And you get stuff around, and logistically, it was awful. But you had massive number of people doing this work. In the same way, right now we have a massive number of truck drivers around. What changed technologically was the invention of the container. The container was a set shape, set size. You could build machines that could carry a container, lift a container, and put a container onto a truck, and that container would go to its point. All those longshoremen instantly lost their jobs. The same thing is literally going to happen when we have AI-powered trucks, AI-powered logistics systems. When the boat itself is run by AI and the truck itself is run by AI, you're losing a lot of jobs. We need to be prepared for that. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to create an educational system that encourages more creative thinking, or we have to be prepared to pay thousands to millions of programmers and developers essentially not to work, because they're not going to be able to work. In the exact same way, we're about to have to spend millions of dollars, billions of dollars trying to figure out how truck drivers, who are that's the primary employment of between, I think it was age 24 to 49 in the world. Almost 75% of males are truck drivers, which is completely nuts. And where do those people go when this all changes? It's a huge problem, and it's not a problem that we should take lightly. We should embrace this technology, but we should also understand that, okay, this is our opportunity to jump to the next evolutionary level. We don't have to be information era drones. We can be creative era drones. This could be a renaissance. I don't think we're smart enough to really pull it off. I think we'll be all dead from nuclear catastrophes before that. But it's nice to think that we might get to the other side of this.
I mean, we have gone through moments in civilization where industries topple and people have to figure out the next thing to do. I understand as an American, we we had generations of people acting like you would live in one house and have one job your whole life. Now, that's just, if you think that's what being American is, I actually think that's the person who's going to lose, right? We've always been, my whole life, they acted like we would have one job. But by the time I graduated college, I already knew that you would mutate careers, just like how you knew you wouldn't live in that town you were in for your whole life.
And if you think about it, our grandparents, if they had heard what we were talking about, they would say, "That's crazy. That's impossible. It's impossible. It's ever going to happen." But it happened, and it was, and the transition was so soft and so gentle that we didn't even notice. So,
all right, we have reached about 30 minutes here. John, do you have any last moments any last thing you want to say?
No, I welcome our robotic overlords, and
I do too.
Yeah,
Bring them.
I'm just a bag of meat in a robotic world.
Amen. Stick a fork in me. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, John, for joining. I always like talking to you. Thank you, Victor. And this wraps up our little talk. We barely got into anything, so we should have you back, John, because we have this whole presentation that we didn't even get to do because this was already just getting started, right? So I think we should bring you back and do certain sections of this where we could easily talk for 25 minutes and put out little modules about it. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Much love.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.